So hi everyone, while you're eating, if you have any questions you want to ask Donald about the movie or Christian or...
Hey gang!
Hello!
I can multitask. Now, to be true to the movie, I should be tasting every single one of your pizzas and judging which is the best.
Okay, so I do have a couple of questions. I feel bad because you're eating, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
Because I've had some response about this. So tell me, how did you come across the script and what made you want to pursue this script? Because it was wonderful. And I was telling you, I was so apprehensive throughout the movie that you were going to get lost somewhere. That when the film was finally over, I was able to breathe. Like everyone lived, everyone was happy, and it's an all-around great family movie. And I love you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Because my 5-year-old watched it with me and he's like, let's cook some pizza now.
Yes. You know, when I read any script, and needless to say, over my career I've done a few romantic comedies, and so, you know, directors get typecast just like anyone, just like an actor does, almost more so. Nobody's sending me Die Hard 7 to direct, or Predator, whatever.
Right, or the right.
They don't think of me for that, but they do think of me in the romantic comedy world.
Right.
And so I look for certain things. I look for, does it make me laugh, and does it make me cry? Because I want a full emotional journey. Does it say something about the human condition? Is it positive? Is it uplifting? Those are the kinds of things I look for when I pick a script. And this came along and had those elements, and certainly I then worked on the script with the writers, you know, to even up that more so.
Did you have who you wanted casted? Your cast was outstanding. For me to see all of everyone,
Right.
I was like, oh my god, that
Yes.
was,
When I came on to the picture, there was no one cast, and then we heard that Emma was interested. Went and met with Emma, but of course that the ingenue always wants to know who her leading man is going to be. So she had mentioned wanting to work with Hayden. And Hayden, in a funny way, you don't think of normally for a romantic comedy role. He's done so many serious, heavy roles. And indeed, I think on the first day of shooting on the movie, Hayden, because I had met Hayden at like a lunch, and just to get a sense of his personality. And when he smiles and laughs, he lights up a room. The trick was getting him to do it on film. And so I kept saying, it's okay to smile, it's okay, you know. And on the first day, he's like, I've smiled more in this movie, first day, mind you, than I've smiled in my whole career.
oh my god.
You know, 'cause he's not used to, you know, just, you know, being that kind of, you know, life-loving guy in the movies. So,
Is there going to be a sequel?
who knows? Who knows? You know, I've been very lucky when it comes to sequels. You know, Miss Congeniality had a second one. Grumpy Old Men had a second one. Grumpy Old Men's getting a third one now.
Yep, it's a reboot.
Hollywood Reporter yesterday.
With
They're
Eddie
going to
Murphy.
remake it with
Right,
Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
Right.
That was a 1993 movie, so.
Are you going to have Sophia Loren in it?
Who knows?
I
She's still around and kicking. Yes.
have a question. So you directed one of my favorite romantic comedies, Mystic Pizza, and this
So there's a pizza, underlying pizza theme.
Yeah.
Pizza Roberts movie theme. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering what is it about this culture and the pizza shop culture specifically that kind of drew you back, and then that ensues romantic comedy.
You know, that was kind of part of it. That was kind of part of the attraction to the movie for me. 30 years later, you know, coming back and recreating that pizza shop, and oddly enough, on the, you know, Mystic Pizza, we basically took an empty storefront in, actually it was one town up from Mystic, and built in our Mystic Pizza. But everything worked. I mean, pizza ovens, everything really worked. And we kind of did the same thing for this. We took 2 empty storefronts because we have competing pizza parlors, and built in. Actually, the funny thing was when we were on one side, the kitchen, the ovens were facing this way. When we went to the other side, we'd quickly turn the ovens around. So the ovens actually worked for both sides of the pizza place. We just moved the ovens where we needed them.
So who provided the pizzas throughout the production, and the cast and crew, did they gain weight?
I will tell you, you know, you certainly, oddly enough, the funny thing was on Mystic Pizza, you'd think, oh, we're eating pizza all the time. Oddly enough, it wasn't.
Oh.
It was lobster.
Oh,
Because the mom works in a lobster factory, putting the things on the claws, right? And we had to buy all these lobsters.
Oh my God.
Right, so they immediately went to the caterers, and so we were eating lobster a lot through that movie. On this one, we had pizza there wasn't a day that you didn't have a slice of pizza in your hand. There was a real pizza place just across the street. We disguised it to look like a vegetable stand, fruit and vegetable place. But they supplied, you know, they were just cooking pizzas all day. We were bringing them in fresh and serving them up. That way, you know, all your atmosphere, say in the That's Not Oregano scene. They were all chomping down on pizza like it was going out of town.
Now, where did you film? Oh.
I was
What's
just
that?
going to say, an interesting thing was when we were building the pizza parlors, it looked so real. The people kept walking and saying,
Or coming in, even during the shooting of a scene, we'd be filming and people would walk in off the street to order pizza. And they'd see the cameras, the lights and everything. They'd still think, well, maybe they're shooting a commercial, but we want to order pizza.
and the people in the corner that were the real pizza parlor were really worried because they thought, oh my God, competition.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, Barnes & Noble is, you know, run into the little local bookstore.
They thought when we were building these 2 pizza parlors, the real pizza place thought, oh, we're going to be put out of business. There's 2 other pizza parlors coming in. We had to go assure them, no.
It's a movie set.
It's a movie set. In fact, you'll be selling us more pizza than you've ever sold.
Did anyone in the past from Mystic Pizza come to visit you guys?
From Mystic Pizza? No. We were up in Toronto, so
How long did you film in Toronto?
I think filming was about 6 weeks. It was quick.
Was it all on location, or were you in a soundstage?
No, it was all on location.
Oh, okay.
I mean, everything.
In Toronto.
It was
Okay.
in Toronto on location.
Okay.
Yeah. Even the big street fair, we created that whole street fair. They have a real taste of Little Italy in Toronto.
Oh, do they?
But they get the permits to close off the streets for about 10 blocks and of their Little Italy, and you know, carnival rides and bands and you know, all that kind of thing. We had to do our miniature version, so we chose an area called the Distillery District, which is kind of famous in Toronto, but it's already pedestrian only. So we didn't have to close the streets in order to set up our street fair.
So, what was the difference between, because I've gone to the Little Italy Festival in New York.
Right.
So what made you choose Toronto versus New York? Was it just
You know what? The film was made there. the idea was it could be Little Italy anywhere, but they're also very proud of their Little Italy in Toronto. So if you look closely, you know, Hayden's wearing a Toronto Blue Jays, you know, jacket, vintage jacket. So they all, you know, have a very fond, and I do too, have a very fond view of Toronto. So.
Did you guys love the Starbucks scenes with the parents? Were they fun?
That was hilarious. She sent me there because I've taken her there and I got her this, I'm a huge pumpkin spice love, you know that. Right, so like, we gotta go. So we went, she said, this is, it's my, she's Middle Eastern, so she's like, this is delicious. And I was like, oh my God. And then when I saw the scene, I was like, that's my, and then she had all the coffee cups or whatever. Like, that's exactly what it was.
And the foam mustache.
Yeah. No, but the best scene was in church. I'm gonna turn off the, this is awesome. The best scene was in the church when the priest opened his confession. I'm sitting there, and I could feel. I'm getting hot right now thinking of when the priest opens. I'm like, oh my God! And they were just thought, oh my God, this was perfect.
It was fun.
Perfect. It was awesome. That scene was the best.
Thank you. Other questions? No.
What was it like working with the cast? I mean, you had a great cast. James Seymour, you know, Emma Roberts, obviously, and Hayden Christensen. What was it like working with the whole ensemble?
Oddly enough, in comedy, I don't rehearse a lot because once you say the funny lines once, twice, 3 times, they're not that funny anymore, and you want to keep it fresh. So we were constantly, you know, changing things up on the set, especially when the two families are together in the beginning, and it's this kind of wild zoo of activity, and both the fathers, Ferrara and Basaraba, you know, are great improv type actors, so they would just run with it. They just had great fun, and of course Andrea Martin is amazing comedically. Danny Aiello, who came in, was just lovely in his role. But you know, everyone in the cast, right down to the smallest parts, you know, was just great fun.
Alyssa Milano.
Well, I'll tell you, she was a shock to me because most people, we've known her since she was little. And so they said, hey, Alyssa Milano's read the script, she'd love to play Emma's mom. And I went,
I know.
Emma's mom? Not old enough to play Emma's mom. And she came in and kind of did her makeup up and the false eyelashes.
Technically she is. Being Middle Eastern, I had my little one at 38. I was the black sheep of the family. I still am. I'm the old one that had to, you know. So when I grew up with Alyssa, and when you're Italian or Middle Eastern, and that, other than being, when you're from that side of the world, you get married at 17, and then by the time you're 40, you have a 20-year-old. So it was nice to see her my age playing a mom with the false lashes and the whole, you know, it was fascinating because I watched her on Who's the Boss, right? And so I grew up with her. So it was just really nice to see that is hilarious. It just made sense. Right? Because my great grandmother got married when she was 9. My grandmother got married when she was 12. My mom got married when she was 17. I had my first child at 39.
Peggy and I got married when we were 12.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. It's nice to see that. It was really nice. It was super cool. It was super cool camera.
I was wondering about your background and growing up. Did you always want to be a director and be involved with film?
Well, I come from a family of it. My father, Daniel Petrie, directed the movie A Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier back in 1961.
So you were destined.
My mother produced many TV movies. My father directed many TV movies back in the heyday of those. So in a sense, I grew up in it, but I didn't want to direct. I was an actor first. So as an actor, I was on a lot of those shows like Little House on the Prairie and Three's Company and One Day at a Time, and you know, just guest starring roles on these different shows. And but as an actor, you're either a star or the kind of the old joke on an actor is, oh, you're an actor at what restaurant? Because you're waiting tables in order to survive as an actor, right? And so I kind of promised myself that all my jobs would not be in a restaurant. They'd be somehow show business related. So I learned hair and makeup. I did that. I did photography. I shot other actors and actresses' headshots. I worked at what is now the Geffen Theater. I screwed those seats into the floor back when it was the Westwood Playhouse. I built the dressing rooms. I was the photographer for the productions. I worked in the box office. I did anything that I thought was show business related. Little did I know all of that was preparing me to direct. And I started directing little theater productions, usually to cast myself in a plum role. And then my dad was the one who came to me and said, you know, Donald, you're pretty good at this directing thing. Maybe you should check out the American Film Institute. And I'm 28 years old, and I've graduated 6 years ago. And do I really want to go back to college? I thought. But I did. I got accepted and went to the AFI, and I called my acting agent and I said, I'm not an actor anymore. I'm going to fully commit to directing. I figured, you know, you're more motivated when you're starving. And you either have to succeed or not. And I was very fortunate in that my AFI thesis film got a lot of attention, got me an agent, got seen by Steven Spielberg, who had a new series called Amazing Stories.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah, that was good.
Love that show.
And I got to direct one of those as my first directing assignment, and that starred Sid Caesar, who was you know, a TV icon. You're all too young to even know who that is, so it kind of launched my career. And then I was doing after-school specials. I was doing a new show called MacGyver, way back when. I was doing a new show called The Equalizer.
Yes.
I was doing a new show called LA Law. And indeed, the episode I did of LA Law was called The Venus Butterfly. And it was an infamous episode that got all the Emmy nominations that year. So I got Emmy nominated, and as soon as that attention came to me, I was able to now get feature offers. But even then, I knew about typecasting, and I got sent what do most young directors get offered to be a first movie? Horror.
Oh, really?
Slasher movies, low budget, you know, there's a murderer on the train killing college kids from Boston to New York. And, you know, I would read these scripts and I'd skip to page 89 and see the knife get into the eye and stuff like that. And I'd go, no, it's not, you know, and indeed I got sent a script that was, you know, an alien attacking, you know, innocent people in a small town. And, but they said, we've got this other movie we're doing, you can take a look at it, you know, and it was Mystic Pizza. And I read this script and I went, that's what I want to do. So I called the producers and they said, what did you think? And I said, well, I loved it. I didn't tell them it was Mystic Pizza I loved. They thought I loved the horror movie. So I got the meetings, you know, to go in. And they said, so you really like that? I said, yeah, Mystic Pizza is wonderful. I saw their faces drop. You know, Mystic Pizza, you want to do that? I don't know if you can, you know, it's a woman's picture. And I said, I have twin sisters. They're just like this. They're just like Daisy. You know, right? So I pitched myself to Sam Goldwyn and ended up directing that movie, and that launched my career. But it also typecast me in something that I would want to do for my life, as opposed to, you know, slasher movies and horror movies, which I don't even go see. So I don't understand why anyone goes to see a horror movie. So you can't sleep that night. So that's how I got my start. So not, you know, it's funny, not as amazing as my father's career. My father was from a small coal mining town, Dice Bay, Nova Scotia, Canada. And after World War II, on the GI Bill, he could go for a master's degree. He wanted to go to a school in the States, but the only way the Canadian GI Bill would pay for a school in the States was if you were studying something that Canada didn't have. Well, he looked up in the catalog for Columbia University, what do they have that Canada doesn't have? And there was this new thing, it's the 40s, called television. So he said, well, I'm going to study television, and ended up directing live television with these kids like Paul Newman, James Dean, you know, live television, you know, back in when it was only in New York, and then it moved from New York to Chicago, and then it came to LA. And, you know, you look at a movie like Back to the Future, and they're watching TV at the table. And says, oh yeah, I got 2 televisions. Nobody has 2 televisions. I remember all that, but that's how my dad started. So I mean, it was kind of a fluke. But my brother went into the business. My brother wrote Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy, and he was president of the Writers Guild for a bunch of years. He got typecast in the big Arnold Schwarzenegger action picture thing. So he was constantly doing those. And I have a sister who became a producer, but then got married to a director. Is head of the film school at Ringling College in Florida. So we're all kind of show business. You know, yeah. And my kids, our kids, no interest.
Oh, really?
No interest.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
We have 2, 29-year-old daughter who works for a nonprofit, and a 27-year-old boy who I put to work. I did a show called Chicago Justice, the Chicago Med, Chicago PD, all those. And I put him to work on it as a grip, which is hard, heavy work. I think he'd never known what work was until he worked as a grip on that. And he's up at 5 a.m., works till 9 p.m., goes to sleep, and wakes up and does it again. But he got that first union paycheck of $3,000 a week, you know. And yet, when it came to the next year, I said, so, you want to do that again? He said, nope. I want to have a life, is what he said. And so he got a job at a ski resort, Squaw Valley, up in Tahoe, as a ski lift operator in the winter. And he works the river rafting in the summer. And, you know, he's Mr. Outdoors guy, you know. So it skips a generation.
Do you still keep in touch with Sandra, Julia, Kate, and do you plan on collaborating with them again?
I don't, because I'm married and they all want me. I have to pitch their I have to be very careful about who I associate.
Are there any plans of collaborating with them again?
I would love to. Any one of them. They're all terrific. needless to say, in the last few years, rom-coms have a rough go of it. So they haven't been making all that many. That's why this is a very refreshing movie, to have out there, and I hope audiences find it. With your help, they will find it. But yeah, they all of them are huge talents, and I'd love to work with any or all of them. Put them all in one movie. Oh, they did that. Ocean. But yeah, Sandy Bullock. When you meet certain actors, you kind of get to know them. So like with Hayden, I saw what an infectious smile he had, and I was like, with Sandy Bullock, I was talking to someone earlier today, and I had dinner with her before we started making the movie, and she laughed at something I said and went, and I went, oh, that's it, that's the character, who's that? The snort laugh that she did. So some things you just discover along the way, just by being open to what your actors can bring to the role. People often think directors are grand puppet masters, making them do what I want them to do. It's actually just the opposite. My job is to pull out of them their best work, their instinct, and as the term director says, is I give them direction. I point them in a certain way, but I don't do the acting. They're doing the acting. I can. On Grumpy Old Men, Walter Matthau came to me on the second day of shooting, and he said, "Donald, after take 3, I don't get any better. I just get older." and he said, "I really only need 2 directions." I said, "Yes, Walter." He said, "LD or MD?" "Yes, Walter." He said, "More demented, less demented." And that's how I directed him for the rest of the movie. Walter, MD.
But you're the director and actor, and
Yeah.
that's getting credit for.
Yeah, very much so. Very
You
much so.
remind me so much of Gary Marshall.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll start talking like this, and now you can pull on the full Gary Marshall.
Well, he was so much fun. He was so fun, just like you.
I sat next to him at the Directors Guild.
As you're talking
Talk.
about it, I'm like, you remind me so much of Gary. He was so, he loved his people.
Oh,
You sound like
well,
people.
he and I were lucky enough. Ellen Schwartz was a great first AD, and we both had her as our first AD. When I was lucky. If Gary wasn't working, I could get Ellen, and if I wasn't working, he could get Ellen. But Ellen was just like Gary, thick New Yorker. You'd say, "Okay, everyone, we're going Toyota." But Gary Marshall was a great guy, great director. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Oh, thank you. Hope you enjoyed your pizza.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
I love you.